Hello, Tribesters and Extended Tribe. We have got another old-time friend coming back to us. So another one of our conscious experts who's coming back for now the third episode with us, Susie Rucker. So Susie is a functional medicine practitioner. She is one of only 150 that are certified and qualified in the UK. And she's got so much wisdom, so much knowledge, and she's going to share it with us. So in our earlier episodes, if you haven't had a chance to watch them, she talks about what functional medicine actually is. She talks about the immune system. She also talks about building healthy habits. And this episode, we're going to talk about intermittent fasting because we touched upon it in the other episodes and said, oh, we need to come back to that and actually give it its own episode. So that's what we're doing right here, right now, talking about intermittent fasting. Susie's also going to educate us on the concepts of fasting and why it's important that we all participate in a fast every once in a while. She talks about juice fasting, more extended retreat fasting, and what the benefits are. She also gives us some tips on how to start intermittent fasting specifically if this is something new. So enough chat from me. Let's just dive right into this episode. I'm so excited to welcome Susie back to the show. Hello, Susie. Thank you so much for joining us again and joining us from your holiday in Cornwall.
You're most welcome. It's wonderful to be back. So thank you for having me.
So this episode is obviously all about fasting. In particular, we had wanting to talk about intermittent fasting, and you just got back. Well, maybe not just, but you recently did a fast over in Portugal. So how was that?
You know, it was fantastic, long awaited, due to what has happened the last 2 years. I love the reset. I think it's not just about the pause and the fast. I think it's the whole collective of the pause in life. I have tried to fast during a normal working week, both when we were living in Singapore and in Dorset, and it's much harder, and I just don't think you get the benefit. So it's not just about the juice, and actually when you do it collectively, it's so much easier. And this was a particularly special place in the north of Portugal, very beautiful. But actually what they did, which I thought was rather clever, they each juice time, so there's various times in the day when you go up to receive your juice, it's very much a sense of coming together for a meal. And because it's quite regular and you have a schedule, and then of course you can fill your time either by the pool or having treatments, the day passes. The day passes with gorgeous yoga in the morning. So for me, it's a reset, it's a pause from your busy life. And of course you feel fabulous. Everyone's skin begins to glow. You can see the sense of calm. Everyone arrives like, yeah, 1,000 miles an hour, and the energy shift. And of course you're kind of collaborative because you're doing this fasting together. So it's a really amazing experience on many different levels. And I think a lot of people have a huge emotional shift because of course when you're detoxing, you're not asking the body to digest food. You're actually, I know it might sound trite, but it's really not. You are able to digest what's been going on in your own life. And I think the last few years have been very challenging in many different ways. So, I think it's fabulous. And I think, as long as I'm able, I will always do it at least once a year. And what comes out the other side is better habits. And I think you and I have talked a bit about habits before, and so much about food and lifestyle is about the habits, the choices we make each day.
Yeah.
And of course,
and
you come back and go, right.
Yeah. And I guess when you go on a retreat, you've got a set period of time where everyone collectively is actually sort of forced to make better choices because you've chosen to be there. You're on a schedule together that it's easier to keep that on board when you come back.
I think that's absolutely right. Your choice has been to show up. That's one thing. I think that was interesting actually because I've been to different places and there's much more. Perhaps everyone had a sense of coming together in the morning to do the yoga and the breath work, which of course I loved. And again, it accelerates a detox. It's a huge benefit, but again, it's part of that practice. Some people didn't, and that's totally fine. I mean, there was that sense you must do what your you know, perhaps what your body's telling you to do, maybe to sleep more. What is extraordinary about a fast, though, because you are cleansing, the kidneys are the biggest part of the cleanse. Perhaps your normal sleep routine is completely changed because you're up, you're being. And so actually, it sounds so funny, you don't sleep particularly well. Whereas the expectation is that you're going to sleep like a baby, there's not a toxin in your body. But I find that funny, and often dreams that it was full moon when we were there. So it's kind of funny, you almost come back tired, but in a different way. But also tired probably because you've had no caffeine of your coffee drink, because everything.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It sort of reminds me of when I first started meditating, or when I did my proper meditation course. And they said, you know, it was a 4-day training, 2 hours each day, which we're like, okay, whatever, it's going to be fine. And they said, you'll be exhausted. You'll be exhausted this weekend. And depending on how much you need to detox, you'll be exhausted for a week, 2 weeks. And I remember just being like dead for about 2 weeks. And I was like, is this ever going to end? I'm meditating to feel better, but
yes, exactly.
Clearly I had
climbing,
so
going up the hill. Yeah, but I think that's wonderful. And I think that was the other thing, again, because the yoga meditation was 2 hours in the morning, and you might sit here going, goodness, 2 hours, I'll never do that. But of course, it's gorgeous, and it's led. I mean, of course, I imagine most of us, I couldn't set aside 2 hours. But what I have found coming back, because I find a few weeks afterwards, maintaining the no coffee, no alcohol, I remain being veggie. So the whole, if you like, the kickstart of the week and things, it was a whole month pause for me. But what I have maintained, and I think is gorgeous, and it's part of resetting those habits, is getting up and doing, even if it's 5 minutes of that breath work, or 10 minutes, or, you know, you just create those better habits. And I think that is what's so wonderful. Because I think we need to be reminded of that, reminded of how good, rather when we're in the thick of it and we're so busy, it's so much easier to continue doing perhaps what doesn't serve us, because the new creates a little bit of challenge.
Yeah, it's that quick fix, processed foods, easier to get, and then instant gratification, sugar. Yeah, and it's that reminder. So I've never done a fasting retreat. It's something I'm really interested in doing, but I think it would be good, because I was one of those people that didn't really understand the concept of fasting. I thought it was more of a starvation thing. So can you actually talk about the concept for everyone, explain?
So the concept, I think, is very much, I think, almost going back to what I said of the pause. And I think people go to fast for different reasons, which is also why that collective fast is so fabulous, because, you know, men and women come together. It's not just a female thing, you know, it's, you know, boys are there too. But it's people's stories and coming into why they're fasting. The concept behind it is very much the detox. But what I'd say now, I think that detox, perhaps it used in the past, because there's always been religious fasts, haven't there? You know, whether you're looking at Ramadan, or, you know, even, you know, during Lent, for the Catholic Lent, it might be a pause in certain things, taking up, giving up. So fasting has always been there in various ways, particularly through the religious calendar. I think what we need now, because our lives are so busy, it is not just the fasting of pausing the digestion and what we're processing, as you mentioned, highly processed foods, you know, some of the toxins coming in from that. But I think it's the fast from other aspects, which is this busier life, which is, you know, this being on demand and having to, because actually they really do encourage that you put away your devices and your computers. And of course, it doesn't take much of me. I mean, I would happily have actually had to give them in. I think I'd almost prefer that, although it was no Wi-Fi. But it's interesting, they've had much more pressure to have Wi-Fi. So in fact, that was all there if you needed it. So the concept, and particularly from a functional medicine point of view, and I know we're going to talk about it today with the intermittent fasting, is really just giving the body, the digestion, this pause. And then with that pause, and particularly with juicing, and of course, and they were very good, because what they didn't want is, when it's poorly managed, you can end up actually just losing a lot of protein muscle loss. So actually, you really want your body to go into a shift of detoxification and through the liver, and obviously the kidney excreting. So you want to, the body is being nourished, but it's being nourished in just these wonderful, the juices are based around liver and kidney cleanse, so you'll have the beetroot, you'll have the greens, you'll have the ginger, very anti-inflammatory. So the huge goal of this is that it is a mental and physical detoxification. And also, again, depending on the retreat you choose, and of course there are so many now, but again, what I thought was so fabulous where I was is that they do bring in the clismatic, and I don't want to upset anyone, but I won't go into too much detail, but we can say a traditional water-based enema. So you really are cleansing the colon. You're encouraged to do tongue scraping. So in other words, and the breath work. So, and then of course the skin, you go into the sauna. So every place that one can detox is being utilized. So skin, the energy shift, the breath work, then the postures. So it's almost just, frankly, think of yourself as a little cloth and you're just trying to wring it all out. And then almost, if you like, shake it out, get rid of what doesn't serve you, but also at the same time being deeply nourished. So, your skin glows in a way, there is that visual shift. And there's this also fabulous sense of being really beautifully empty, but not empty and, undernourished. You're so nourished, and yet, does that make sense? Because you're not digesting in a heavy, hard way, and there's no toxins you're asking your body to process. You're almost just floating, and you have these treatments, you're frankly floating through life.
But that makes perfect sense. It's like you get like you have the right things in your body to nourish you, but you feel light and airy. Your energy. So then your energy, you don't necessarily
your energy shifts. Yeah. So
okay.
I mean, I was the absolute classic person, and given all the knowledge I have, I literally came at it running. So I was like, right, from the week before, you will not have caffeine, so stop your coffee or tea if it's certain. Don't eat meat or fish if you're not veggie. Of course, I just went at it flying, and I kind of knew that. So for me, day one was an absolute headache in bed, almost just hysterical, but it was just in a way wonderful because I knew that day was going to pass, and you almost just fell into it, slept, and just listened and took your juices. But then after that, there's this incredible light and energy or lightness that then came from that. And then like I said, the different conversations and coming together and the appreciation of your juice, and so, and actually if you intermittent fast as I do, anyway, I almost felt I was having more because there was 4 or 5 juices a day, not just 2 meals, which is what I follow. So it's so exciting. And the 4 o'clock one came with a shot, and so it's like, wow, got your juice and something added extra. So and they were very clever, and they were cleansing supplements. There's so much work around chlorella, and it's probably the most knowledgeable green algae. It keeps the bind until the exit. In other words, there are some things that can cause harm. Charcoal's a great binder, but really should be short-lived because it can come with some possible toxicity or just bind everything. Whereas chlorella will bind toxins and take it out. So we very much were being encouraged to take some of the supplements, and chlorella was one. So again, you've got that added internal cleanse, as well as obviously the option to cleanse through one's colon, and then obviously cleanse through movement. So and sweat. So really, that's why best analogy is the cleansing cloth, because all aspects are being addressed.